Okay, so the alliance has been handled well. You still see Trump pursuing this America First policy. China is not front of mind at the moment because Ukraine is. Then you have just in the last couple of months this conflict escalating more and more with Venezuela. But at some point, Trump is going to turn his attention to China, but it's more on an economic level at the moment, isn't it, with the fight over chips and the AI race?
I think that's right. Last week, during the course of the week, they released their national security strategy, quite an important document. It was a very different document. It had some language in there that you don't typically see in a strategy document. Things like Europe has been overwhelmed by immigrants and Europe is at risk of civilization erasure, which is not a term that you'd normally see in a strategy. But if you set that aside, the fundamentals clearly are, frankly, no different from what a number of presidents have been saying since the end of the Cold War. We need to focus on America first. No American president would say otherwise. We're not, though, going to carry the expense and the liability of holding up the global order if others are not willing to play their role. There's a phrase in there in the document about not holding up the world order like Atlas holding up the earth, which I thought was an interesting and telling phrase. There is a focus on Europe doing more to confront and to contain Russian aggression, which you and I have spoken about throughout the year, which is about Europe taking advantage of the fact that it's 10 times the size of Russia economically. They should really have a fearsome military that would deter all but the most aggressive Russian actions. And then if you need nuclear weapons, France and the UK have got nuclear weapons to act as a strategic deterrent. The reference to China is really interesting, but before I quickly mention that, there is a greater emphasis on the Western Hemisphere. But American presidents going back to the early 19th century have talked about the Western Hemisphere being, if you like, our local geography or our homeland geography, and that the US administrations going right back to Monroe in the 1820s looked dimly on the incursion into the Western Hemisphere of any external powers. So Trump in that sense is really in a constant line of American tradition. And on China, it's very clear. It says, yes, we're going to compete economically, we want to avoid conflict, and one of the ways in which we're going to avoid conflict is by achieving what the document refers to as military overmatch with allies and partners in the Pacific.
Trump talks a lot about America First, indeed that document that you just cited there as well. But really, in this second term, he really has been kind of returning to the kind of the watchdog for the world, though, hasn't he? He spent a lot of his time trying to solve global conflicts.
Well, indeed, and as we've discussed with a number of the different peace initiatives that he's pursued, it's really an unusual approach for someone who campaigns on America First and non-intervention to also make part of his brand intervention to achieve these peace deals, whether it's India and Pakistan or Thailand and Cambodia and so on and so forth. However, think about how that intervention's been achieved. In no circumstances, and I think the President's actually quite proud of this, as he, with the exception of the attack on Iran's nuclear facilities that we discussed earlier in the year, he's actually not committed US combat forces, with the exception of what's occurring down in the Caribbean and in the Eastern Pacific Ocean, where they're interdicting what are designated to be narco-terrorists with these aerial strikes on these boats. But other than that, American military power has actually not been deployed. So I think the President is achieving a twin objective, or he's trying to at least, of being a non-interventionist when it comes to the significant deployment, the material deployment of US forces, with the exception of the B-2 bomber run into Iran. So that appeals to his base. So his base is animated by this idea that we've taken on too much, we're spending too much. Why are we in other people's wars? I think he's done a very good job actually of restraining the use of American power, certainly compared to some of his immediate predecessors since the end of the Cold War. But on the other hand, he has been an interventionist president, as you've suggested in your question, by pursuing these peace initiatives, principally in Gaza and obviously now exerting as much pressure as he can typically it would seem more on Zelensky than on Putin to get a deal done over Ukraine. It's a mixed picture, and it's not clearly able to explain as is he an interventionist or is he a non-interventionist. He's both, but he's an interventionist in different kinds of ways.
Yeah, and it comes down to the dollars as well. He's putting pressure on Europe in particular to spend more. Mike, it is always good to talk to you, especially today. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Laura.